Hello again. Today I'm just going to have a somewhat casual reflection over some of my favorite Wii games. Like before, it's not exhaustive. So, first is Mario Galaxy 2. Of both Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, this is my favorite of the pair. I think that it took everything that Mario Galaxy brought to the table, which was a lot, admittedly. Um, I do believe that Mario Galaxy is still a fan favorite for a lot of people, even more so than Odyssey. I just think Mario Galaxy 2 took what the first did and just packaged it in, you know, a more cohesive way. Admittedly, in the first game, I preferred how you would select levels, whereas in this one, it just seemed more like your standard linear, select this level, then select the next. I kind of liked how they integrated that into the first game a bit better. But this is more of a just general improvement. In a way, I wouldn't be shocked if they decided to release a Mario Odyssey 2 in a similar fashion, though with Donkey Kong Bonanza coming out as it is, I just don't really think they would do that. It already feels like a spiritual successor to Odyssey anyway, or at least it looks like it. But yeah, this calls back to an era of gaming for me where things really transitioned and changed. I used to have a strong passion for all things Nintendo at this time, but now it's kind of just lukewarm, admittedly. Um, with the Switch 2, I'm not sure if I'm going to be getting that right away, but with the Wii, I was on board with it immediately, even the Wii U, believe it or not. So something has changed, but it's nothing to do with the quality of the games. It's just, your interests wax and wane. But this was sort of the peak of my love of Nintendo during this era. So next is this is a probably my brother's favorite, almost mine. Monster Hunter Tri. Um, this game was my first exposure to a Nintendo Online experience, and it wasn't a good one at all. It's pretty terrible. The game was fantastic. My online experience, not so much. Lots of disconnections trying to connect with other hunters to fight some of the higher ranked monsters. But I just remember the introduction of the underwater combat here. While a lot of people apparently didn't like it so much, I quite enjoyed it. Um, I would generally use the sword and shield and um, the bowgun or the light bowgun. I don't think there was a heavy bowgun. I haven't played this in a long time. I've played Worlds. I haven't played Wilds, but this was my introduction to Monster Hunter. I think a lot of people's introduction to Monster Hunter. Uh, Generally speaking, I don't think this game was difficult, but if you're not used to this kind of combat, certainly it can be. Some of the higher ranked monsters certainly were a challenge, and I could never, I would watch videos back in the day of people soloing some of these monsters, and they would just effortlessly kill them, and I could never do that. But it was fun to watch, and this opened up, an interest in, um, I suppose, other games of a similar style to Monster Hunter. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but any game where you're kind of fighting a large monster and it comes down to skill, dodging, timing, countering, you know, this is what generated that interest for me. Next is a game a lot of people probably haven't heard about ever, Zack and Wiki. Now, this is a puzzle based game, but it's kind of a point and click style adventure. And it actually really incorporated the motion controls in a pretty, I say it integrated it in a logical way. It wasn't without flaws, but some of the puzzles in this game were deceptively difficult. And Zach could die in some pretty brutal ways in this game, believe it or not. Being electrocuted, bitten and poisoned by spiders, falling into lava, being attacked by some sentient guard statue or something. I mean, um, certainly looks kid friendly, but the puzzles, the difficulty, and the ways in which you could die, I feel like this game actually was targeted towards an older audience than what the art style seemingly depicts. But largely, it's a really, I think, an obscure game. Uh, it's very fun. I actually haven't gone back to this in probably 7, 8 years. But like how Monster Hunter inspired an interest in a whole different genre of gaming for me, this also brought me into point and click adventure, point and click puzzle style games. Just very fun, very colorful and vibrant. I don't know if it's easy to get your hands on this these days, but if you can, I recommend giving it a try. And this camera is, it's a cheap camera. Next is a game that is near and dear to me. I love it to pieces. It originally came out on the PlayStation 2, but I got it on the Wii. It's Okami. And the camera's gonna mess up. That's just how it is. But this game to me had one of the best art directions I've seen come out of a video game. I know nowadays a lot more people are on board with things like Japanese art and aesthetics, but at this time in the gaming space, I don't really think it was given as much of an emphasis as it was with Okami. I actually found the brush mechanic. Now you would think it would be more intuitive with the Wii remote controls, motion controls. But for me, it was actually more intuitive using the PS2 controller. I played it on PS2. I don't have it on PS2, but I have played it on the PS2 at a friend's house. So I got a taste of those controls way back when. And I kind of prefer them. It seems snappier. I don't know how to describe it. But, you know, the adventure being as long as it was, as captivating as it was, I can't really think of a game more deserving of a proper sequel than Okami, which thankfully it has one now on the way. I know um, there was another Okami game, but I don't talk about it much. I didn't consider it to be a proper sequel, even though, it did come after. But yeah, fantastic game. Like Wind Waker, the art direction is in part what defines it. So it's aged very well. Up next, I'm a bit of a weeb, or I have been for a long time. So Naruto, Shippuden, Clash of Ninja, Revolution 3, a mouthful. Kind of like Budokai Tenkaichi was a mouthful. But um, this game, I believe we only got up to Clash of Ninja 2 in the West. And Ninja Tyson 3 and 4, it's not the full title, but were not released in the West. And I believe Clash of Ninja Revolution and Revolution 2 were essentially Clash of Ninja 3 and 4, just our version of it. And that Revolution 3 was the first to introduce the Shippuden characters. And I believe that was really perfect timing because at this time, I believe the Naruto series was transitioning into Shippuden in the West anyway. So I suppose that was intentional. But this game, I think, is the best to have come out of Clash of Ninja as a whole series. I don't prefer this to Ultimate Ninja or Ninja Storm, but it's pretty close. I do consider it to be more of a traditional fighter in comparison to that in some ways. But yeah, I do think some characters were dramatically more effective than others. And again, the data fight, if you remember that, was really challenging and borderline unfair. And again, the online experience in this game was horrible. Lots of disconnections, just dreadful. But I played this a lot with my brother. It was a blast. And yeah, I really wish there was some kind of spiritual successor to Clash of Ninja, or even just a new Clash of Ninja game, just on a modern engine. I don't know. I would like more of it. Next here is another game I don't think it's obscure. It's just not talked about anymore. Uh, Tatsunoko versus Capcom Ultimate All Stars. This game, I didn't know anything about Tatsunoko, and this was the first versus game I've ever played. I know Marvel versus Capcom 2 and 3 are considered to be legendary games. I've played neither. Um, I wanted to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2 a long time ago, but never did. And I wanted to play Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and never did. Now, I know Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite was kind of not terribly great, so I didn't play that either. So I don't have much of an opinion to offer on that whole series. But this game was vibrant and colorful. And I really do think that gameplay wise, it was really fast, responsive, and snappy. I did learn about some of the Tatsunoko characters in this game, and I played this with some friends, and they actually really liked some of the character designs they saw coming from that franchise. So, if this were to get, say, an HD re-release, I'd be all for it. I think that, you know, games like this are deserving of either a remastering or a re-release. I don't think it would get a sequel. Maybe licensing the Tatsunoko franchise is difficult. I don't know, but I quite like this game a lot. I played it a lot, more than any other fighter on the Wii, believe it or not, and that's saying a lot considering um, what's coming. Not next, but in a few more games. Next is Animal Crossing City Folk. I know a lot of people weren't a fan of this because it just felt very much like Wild World on the big screen. And a lot of people weren't a fan of that. One thing I really liked about this game was, well, of course, the city. The downside was that they essentially just took everything that made the town worth roaming around and consolidated it into the city. So you were left with a game that felt like they were just taking established content and just moving it somewhere else. So in a way, it felt like you were gaining something, but also losing simultaneously. Um, I didn't like, I think it was called a pathing feature, where if you walked around town, um, your town would actually start to have these dirt tracks that would erode the grass, which I thought was a pretty crappy idea to have your grass disappear over time. It looked horrible. But I like this game primarily because I loved Wild World and I had an obsession with Animal Crossing at this time, an immense obsession. This was just kind of there to stoke the fire of that obsession. In hindsight, I didn't enjoy it as much as Wild World, but I don't think it deserves the amount of hate that it gets. I don't think there's a bad Animal Crossing game to have come out. The GameCube one is definitively the best, though, of course. Maybe, maybe not, but not a bad game. I gave it its fair chance. I played it quite a lot. I don't dislike it. I think it's overhated. Next is my favorite Wii game. No surprise. It is Smash Brothers Brawl. If you were around for the pre-hype cycle of this game, it was unlike anything else. I don't know what it was, but when that first trailer dropped in 2006, long time ago, you know, uh, the fans went crazy. Nintendo fans went crazy. I went crazy. I think I watched that trailer probably about literally 500 times. I'm not kidding. As soon as I saw Meta Knight, I don't know what it was, but Meta Knight just looked awesome in that trailer. And of course, he was broken as a character, so go figure. But there was just something about Brawl that encapsulated an era that I don't think we'll really get again from Nintendo. Um, the theme song, I think, is the best main theme to have come out of a Smash game. I don't foresee one topping it. And, I think the newcomers were fantastic. It just felt like the most content rich Smash game. Even though Ultimate has a lot of content, for some reason with Brawl, it just seems like, I think it's due to Subspace Emissary, really. So that was a mode that I think a lot of people want back. For me personally, I was hoping Ultimate would have a story equivalent. I know World of Light was its own thing, but it wasn't quite the same. So I hope the next Smash, if Sakurai is behind the helm on that, which I don't know, he might be retired. I mean, from Smash, he's making the next Kirby Air Ride, of course, but you know, this game was just legendary. You can't have a Wii library without it. And even though things like tripping and slower gameplay were a big problem, it's just one of those games where you reminisce over the hype cycle. I don't think any Nintendo game has seen as much hype, pre-release hype as this. It was absurd. Now, here's a pair of Wii U games randomly because who remembers the Wii U, right? But again, Breath of the Wild for the Wii U. Um, I didn't get it for the Switch. I didn't have a Switch at the time. It's not that I was broke, but it's that I was broke in part. But I don't know, at the time, I was sold on Breath of the Wild. It's just that I figured I had a Wii U already. Why not just get it for that? But man, um, I do prefer Tears of the Kingdom to a slight degree. I do think the simplicity of this in comparison is a lot better and functions better as sort of an introduction into this new Zelda formula. But I can't really say anything about this that hasn't already been said. Um, I don't. Do I think it's the best game to have ever been released? No. I do think that it revitalized open world gaming in a way that made the exploration feel more organic and natural. You know, instead of having a map just flooded with a deluge of icons, it felt like you could navigate the game space in an organic way. And it didn't involve you, checking your menus every 10 seconds or, how a lot of, you know, Ubisoft games will have their maps cluttered to the brim with icons of all sorts. It's to the point where the game is nothing but icons. But yeah, I wasn't a fan of the Divine Beasts. I really kind of wasn't. But the immersion, the exploration, the new approach, I think that this was a very ambitious game that, I don't know, it brought a lot of new Zelda fans on board who weren't a fan of the original formula. I still stand by my favorite two Zelda games as being Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, but if this is the formula going forward, I just hope they continue to refine it. Last here is another random Wii U pick. And again, I'm a huge Smash fan. I'm not gonna be ashamed of that. Smash for the Wii U. My least favorite Smash. I'm not I'm not counting the 3DS version. I consider that to be, I don't know. You can factor it in or not. I just don't really factor it in. But what I liked about this game primarily was the custom movesets. Uh, I don't know how you can bring that back without making it imbalanced. But I will say that this game really got the hype cycle going all over again because this was during an era of Nintendo Directs. So the character announcements felt more sudden and surprising. With Brawl, you would go to the Smash Dojo, which I love that site. I miss those days. But you would go to the Smash Dojo and, you know, check screenshots every day. You get a character announcement here and there. Since this was in an era of Nintendo Directs, you know, um, you can get an announcement at any point in time. There could be a Nintendo Direct at the end. You get an announcement. There could be a Direct dedicated to Smash Wii U. It was just nice to know that you were getting something and that you can anticipate it ahead of time. So I don't consider it to be hype in the same way that Brawl was. It's a different kind of hype. But all the same, it's Smash. So, even the worst game in the series, which I consider this to be, it's not a bad game because Smash is held to a pretty high standard of quality. Though I recall in this game Bayonetta being very broken. So, but this was when I started to develop a more, what could you say, competitive interest in Smash, and I just took playing the game more seriously. And that carried over into Ultimate, but over time that started to dissipate, and I realized that I'm pretty casual when it comes to fighting games, um, even with things like Tekken. So Smash is great for those who are kind of in the middle where maybe they're a little bit casual, maybe a little hardcore. Pick your poison. Though Melee is clearly the fan favorite for competitive aspects, but I quite like this game a whole lot. I thought the original trailer that they did for it, revealing Villager, was pretty well done. But overall, the hype cycle for this game was, I don't know if it was ever compromised by leaks. I know Smash Ultimate, there was a big, the Grinch leak that people thought was legitimate. I don't know if there was anything of that caliber for this game. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, that's all that I have for right now. I do have more Wii games sitting around, but I might talk about them, I might not. But thanks for sticking around and have a good day.